Oh, stop.
They were talking to me there.
What's that?
No, actually.
They were.
There, you're on.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am so thrilled that you guys signed up for this and are here today. I love this work. It is extremely powerful work. I want to thank Sharon for having such a positive, visionary kind of attitude towards this. Yeah. Because Sharon started this. She wants to hear our voices. And don't we clamor for that? So this is our opportunity to do that. So first of all, let me tell you that I'm really nervous. I'm shaking. My heart's pounding. And that's very unusual for me. I've been teaching 40-something years, and I never get nervous. I just love it. I'm just calm as a cucumber. I've led these with 800 people, and I never get nervous. But let me tell you what's going on. Pray for me. That's the truth. I am shaking. Sharon and Tony called me and said, hey, can you come up and talk to us? And they presented this idea, Deb, we want to do this thing. We'd like for you to do an AI. And I said, absolutely. I love this work. It is so cool. When? Next week. So it usually takes 2 or 3 months to plan these well. So I'm out of my element because I'm meticulous about preparing for a class, preparing for a workshop, and right now, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I appreciate your grace, and I appreciate your help today. Look at this, I'm shaking. So help me. Say, Deb, you're all right? Okay, all right. Maybe if I get into this, the teacher will kick in and I'll forget. Okay, so I wrote this introduction last night, so I have to read it because I haven't memorized it. Thanks, Sharon, for all the lead time on this. Like Tony said, this is an introduction to a new way of thinking about change. And I think you guys would agree with me that we humans are very good at talking about what didn't work, what doesn't work, and who's to blame. Is that true? But today, it's our hope and our intention to help all of us embrace this new way of being, a new way of looking at our work together and learning this powerful approach to change called appreciative inquiry. Now, AI is grounded in substantial research, and I've seen it work in extraordinary ways. I've led appreciative inquiries with city leaders, with colleges, and with couples in my counseling practice. It works with individuals. It's just a real positive way to think about change. So at its core, AI is not the typical problem-solving approach or blame shifting. Have you ever heard of that? It is grounded in appreciating. That is, recognizing the full worth of someone or something. It's to value, treasure, admire, respect. It is being grateful, caring, loving even, and compassionate. Now at this point, the cynic in all of us may kick in, and you'd ask a question like, isn't this a rather simplistic way to face our incredible challenges? Isn't this just some nice, fluffy, touchy-feely talk? If so, if that cynic pops up, and it does in all of us, it does in me sometimes, I want to sincerely ask you to suspend your judgment, to lay aside that cynicism, and experience the very real power of appreciative inquiry. Let me give you an example. A couple came to me for counseling, and their marriage was in trouble. He pointed to her and said, fix her. She pointed to him and said, it's all his fault. And I knew that this way of thinking, feeling, and behaving, they were doomed. So by shifting their focus to what was good about the other, or helping them remember what it was like when things did click, and when they were connected and intimate, the energy in the room shifted. Then they had the energy to fix what was wrong. Then it was about teaching them the power of their words. Instead of criticizing him for not helping with disciplining the children, and I can tell you that criticism nearly every time will shut a person down. We don't solve problems by criticizing one another or blaming one another, because defenses go up and communication is almost impossible. So instead of criticizing him for not helping with disciplining the children, she began to tell him how much she appreciated when he did parent well. She'd look for ways to appreciate him. And instead of blaming her for their infrequent times of intimacy, he began to ask her, "What can I do to show you how much I value you? What do you need from me to feel secure and appreciated?" Can you feel the difference? The transformation in their relationship was astonishing, and it boiled down to asking appreciative questions. So today we're going to explain the philosophy behind this way of being and doing, and I'm going to describe the 5D process of AI. Somebody asked me yesterday, "Yeah, I'm going to come to that AI thing. What is that, artificial intelligence? What is that?" Well, you're going to hear AI. It's appreciative inquiry. And the 5Ds are defining, discovering, dreaming, designing, and delivering on our destiny, okay? You don't have to write this down. Everything's in your handout there, and I'm going to send you some stuff too. So what I need from you today, I ask you to be all in today. Bring the best of who you are to this work for the next couple of hours. Every one of you has gifts and talents that need to be appreciated and listened to. And your colleagues too need to be heard and valued, and their talents appreciated. I agree with Mother Teresa, who said, "If you invite me to an anti-war rally, I won't come. But if you invite me to a peace rally, I'll be there." Words create our reality. Thoughts become things. Words create worlds. So the language we use, guys, creates our experience. Instead of talking about how bad communication and collaboration is, let's talk today about what we want it to be. You hear the difference? So, I want to ask you to embrace these touchstones. I think I have a slide on this. There you go. I apologize for the size of that. It looked great on my computer at home last night. But, if you can't read this, I think it's in your handout. Page 4, there you go. It might be easier for you to read it off of that. But these touchstones are just ways of being together today that will help us create a positive, safe space to do good work, okay? I learned these from formation in the community college, from the Center for Renewal and Wholeness in Higher Education, and it's based on the work of Parker Palmer and his book, The Courage to Teach. So let me go over these and ask you to think about, how does this apply to me? You guys know when you're teaching, when you're dealing with people, you can hear for information or you could listen for formation, right? So think about these and how it applies to you. So first one is be 100% present, extending and presuming welcome. Set aside the distractions if you can. Bring all of yourself to the work. We all learn most effectively in spaces that welcome us. So welcome others to this place and this work. and presume that you are welcomed as well. So if you would, take 30 seconds, and if you don't know the other people at your table in their name, I want you to find that out, write it down if you have to, because I want you to use their name every time you communicate with them today. There's something honoring about hearing your name, isn't it? Say, hey, Deb. Hey, Deb. Come on. Hey, Deb. Hey, Deb. Whew, how am I doing, by the way? I've calmed down a little bit. So if you would, make sure you know the person's name, call them by name, and say, you know what? I'm glad you're here. You are welcome here. Will you do that right now? All right. You're going to have. Okay, guys, you're going to have lots of time to talk with one another, but I just wanted you to say hey, and that you're welcome here. I'm glad you're here. I want you to acknowledge and look them in the eyes across the table from you. But what I want to do is teach the principles, teach the 5D process for you, and then we're going to experience an AI. You're actually going to, it'll be abbreviated, of course, because it usually takes a full day to do one of these, but I want you to, is that my phone on? Sorry, Randy. There we go. All right, so are you present?
Excellent.
Be present. All right. Second one is listen deeply. You're going to be talking to it in pairs and in small groups and at the end in the larger group. So I want to ask you to listen intently to what's being said. All right? And that takes intention. Listen to the feelings beneath the words. As Quaker writer Douglas Steere puts it, holy listening. You listen another soul into life, into a condition of disclosure and discovery. That may be, I tell my students this, that may be one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being, is to deeply, non-judgmentally listen to them. Okay? And what it does is it helps them find their own voice. Dreams and ideas and creativity that may have been unintentionally buried, when you listen to someone, somehow they emerge. Isn't that true? And AI is a generative process. It is generated from these activities. So, and of course, strive to achieve a balance between listening and reflecting, speaking and acting. All right. Next one, I don't think I put it on your list, but it's never share or die. Okay, look at a person across the table and say, it's never share or die. Now I'm going to tell you, you will be invited to share in pairs in your small group. There's 4 of you at a table, 3 or 4 at a table, and then in the large group. And the invitation is exactly that. You will determine the extent to which you want to speak and participate in the discussion. Okay? To me, this one, Martine, also is about being cognizant of how much I'm talking. I want to have a good balance between listening and listening deeply. Listening, looking, reading the body language cue, the whole thing. I want to get as much information from the person speaking as I can. And if I'm doing all the talking, I don't learn much. Okay? So I don't think that's the way Parker Palmer describes it, but I've been doing this work for 25 years now, and I've seen it over and over. Because you know that. Occasionally you're in a group like this, and you get somebody that just really likes to talk, and it actually diminishes the work of the group. So we have to think about that, is having that balance between listening and speaking. No fixing is a biggie. Each of us is here to kind of use our colleagues, use these conversations to reignite some creativity in us. And so I believe everybody has this inner teacher sort of thing, that voice, that when you're quiet enough, you recognize it as your own voice. But in our busyness, sometimes we go months without hearing it. So we're not here to set somebody else straight or to help right another's wrong or to fix what we perceive is broken or distorted in another person. That shuts them down. It doesn't open them up. Okay? And that goes right into the next one, which is suspend judgment. Set aside your judgments by creating a space between judgments and reactions. We can listen to each other and ourselves more fully. Okay? It's countercultural, don't you think? Our society, boom, that's what we do is judge. So you have to be intentional about not judging. Okay? Speak your truth. You're invited to say what's in your heart, trusting that your voice will be heard and that your contribution will be respected. Your truth may be different from what another person has said, but speaking your truth is exactly that. It's not debating with somebody, it's just listening to that and adding that information to your conversation. So when you speak, use the first person I rather than you or they. You hear the difference? Okay? Respect silence. I think the greatest work sometimes is done in reflection. Stopping to think about what you just heard. And even respecting the silence after you have spoken to listen to what you just said. Well, you know that in pedagogy, that we can teach something, but unless we give them time to reflect on it and think about how it applies to them, deep learning doesn't take place, right? So silence is important. Don't get uncomfortable if there's silence in between the questions that I'm going to give you to ask each other. Maintain confidentiality. This is another important one. Like I said, you're going to be asked to share stories of your experiences here, high points in your experiences here working at Mountain View. Many of you will include stories when I ask about trust of something that you experienced outside of work life, maybe in your personal life. And when I say maintain confidentiality, just remember that if somebody shares a story with you, you do not have permission to share their story with anybody else unless they give you that permission, all right? If I stand up here later this morning and give you a story about my son Daniel, you don't have the right to go tell somebody else what I told you about Daniel. But you can come to me and say, Deb, can I use that story? And if I give you permission, you can. Does that make sense? Because you got to know that your voice is going to be respected, that we want to get to the real, not just the intellectual understanding, but the affect as well. And you got to know that your emotions are going to be protected, okay? A couple more. When things get difficult, turn to wonder. Again, that helps us stay out of judgment. You know, if somebody says something, you go, oh my gosh, you know? Oop, catch yourself, no judgment. Just wonder, wow, I wonder what brought them to that point of view. Or I wonder what they're feeling. I wonder what my reaction teaches me about this, about myself, okay? And then the last one is practice slowing down. Thomas Merton and many others tell us that the pace of modern life can cause violent damage to the soul. When we fail to slow down, when we fail to rest, we actually do violence to our souls. So even today, if we don't get through the entire 5 Ds, that's okay. What I'm hoping is that what we do get through is meaningful. So I'm not going to rush through it just so we get all the way to destiny by 12 o'clock. But let's slow down and make what we are able to experience more meaningful. Are you cool with that?
Yes.
All right, so let me ask you, do you feel like you could embrace those touchstones in our work here today? You're going to have to talk back to me because it helps me calm down if I know you're like, okay, yeah, thank you. All right, let me see what my next slide is. Learning objectives, again, these are in your handout if these are too difficult to read up there. Tony explained this very clearly. The overall objective for today is to learn this AI process and the terminology so that we can use this in the college-wide appreciative inquiry, all right, and help others kind of get it, all right? So we're going to define it. We're going to describe the 5D process. I think it's important for me to go over, at least mention, the principles that underlie AI. There are assumptions that we need to look at. Most of the time, our assumptions are not apparent to us, but assumptions are important, and there are assumptions about AI. We're going to differentiate the difference between how we usually do business, and that is the problem-solving approach, and AI, all right? And then what we really need to accomplish today is to clarify and define what the exact focus of our inquiry is going to be when we do this on October 12th and October 26th, okay? And then we need to determine the resources so that what we do on those days with the larger group, with all the campus, that we have the resources we need to make that a successful day, and that we're able to make everybody feel welcome and in that safe atmosphere so that they can share what's going on in their world. So, you ready?
Yes.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. I think I can feel my feet now. That is so weird. Oh, it's just to humble you. You never get it. You never totally arrive, right? Whew, thank you, Patricia. Your smile helps me. So what is appreciative inquiry? At its heart, AI is about the search for the best in people, their organizations, and the strengths, the opportunities that are abundant in them. It's not so much a shift in methods and models of organizational change, but it's a shift in how we look at things. It's a different perspective. It helps us to see the wholeness of an organization. You know, we talk about silos all the time. And that this is a living, dynamic, changing organism that we work in. And every single person here affects the climate. And we have to see it like that, right? And if you are shooting your brother, you're shooting yourself. If I'm pointing the direction that administration needs to get their act together, what is that doing? It's destroying the organization. We are either forming or we are deforming. And the language we use creates that reality, okay? So, you're going to have to look at your handout on this one. I know this is very small. The first D is definition, and that is to choose the positive as the focus of our inquiry. And for us, based on the survey that Sharon sent out and all of us had the opportunity to respond to about things that we wanted to look at in the organization, we want to build bridges. That kind of summarizes what was gleaned from the survey. We want to build bridges for extraordinary student success. We want to be bridge builders. Okay? 8 different focus areas were identified in that survey: connection, entry, dual credit, advising and career services, graduation success, community outreach, adjunct faculty services, and the business exchange. So what we're going to ask you guys to do, I don't know if you've done this already, have they, Sharon, chosen an area of their focus?
The survey has gone out, so we will send it out again later.
Okay, so people are choosing now based on that survey, and once we get that back, teams will be on that. So anyway, for our work today, you guys might want to be thinking about which one you want to plug into, okay? So these are 8. We're going to have different teams as they do their AI questions. They're going to focus specifically on that focus area. Make sense? All right. So let's talk about assumptions. Oh, wait a minute. Let me back up. I guess ought to go over the other D's, right? After we define that, discovery is in two parts. The first part is when we do the interviews. You'll interview someone just in pairs. You'll just get with one other person and go through the interview questions. And I give those to you. I give you the script. We're going to inquire into exceptionally positive moments. And then the second part of discovery is where you give them the opportunity to share those stories. And the whole outcome we want from the discovery is that we want to identify life-giving forces, all right? The conditions that made those positive experiences possible, all right? You're not going to record word for word what their story is. That's not what we're after. You're after the life-giving forces, the conditions that made that. If they talk about a time they were on a team and trust was really high, well, what made it possible for that trust to be that high? Okay? Because we want to replicate it, right? We're going to celebrate what we're doing well and do more of it. So in the discovery phase, you'll come back to your small groups after they've done their paired interviews and have an opportunity to share with your small group, your 7 to 13, we hope. Okay? And then from that, you will choose 1 or 2 stories to share when we get back in the large group. Everybody's not going to have the opportunity to share, but you may find 1 or 2 that, boy, this story really captures what our life-giving force pointed to. And then the next one is dream. The next D is dream. And this is a really exciting part of the process. Hopefully by this time, trust is high. People have buy-in. They feel accepted and valued and appreciated. And so by the time we get to this creative piece, people aren't shut down. They aren't afraid to speak up with a crazy idea. Well, we want those crazy ideas. That's the whole thing, right? We want to think bigger and different than we have in the past. That's where we create a image of a preferred future together, okay? And then the last, for next one, we have to design it, okay. If we want this, then we begin to automatically start thinking about, well, what do we need to make that happen? Well, we need a different flow chart of communication. We need additional ways to communicate. We need more money for this. It will automatically, I think, come from those dreaming conversations. And then we deliver it. We deliver it. Would you say that out loud with me? We deliver it. We deliver it. How many times have you guys been involved with some creative work like this in a group, and some great ideas came forth and you were really all in, and then we had a change in leadership and it just got filed in a drawer somewhere and we never acted on it? Courageous conversations. Thank goodness that is being resurrected now with Sharon, but people get cynical and they just think, well, why should I even bother anymore? I'm just going to teach my classes, do my job, and go home. Because it's depressing, it's deflating, right? When you work, and you get really excited about it and say, oh, right, we are going to have childcare for our students. I've been here 11 years, and every single year that has come up as one of the top priorities, a barrier for our students. Do we have childcare? Not yet. But we're working on it now. So here's the thing. I want to emphasize this last piece. And I'm so grateful Sharon's in the room, that we want to deliver. We don't want the work. I love this work. I'm hoping you guys fall in love with it, and that when you work with your groups, there's just great creative ideas come out of the folks you're working with, and we want to just stay on it until we can deliver it. We don't want it stuck in a file drawer somewhere, right? Yep. Okay, so that's the objective. We got to deliver. Let me take 60 seconds to tell you this story. I did an AI with city leaders, and it was called Imagine Garland. And we had about 150 people in the room, and they were big shots, you know, like the mayor and all those kind of people, you know. And but they were all in. They were all in. They knew Garland was in crisis, and they knew they had to make some changes. You know, Garland is landlocked. It can't grow geographically. And they were experiencing some things that really could have destroyed the city. But we came together for an all-day AI, and they were all in. And you wouldn't believe when we got to the point of the sharing the stories and the dreaming and the creative things. They put on skits. They created art projects. It was amazing. And they did take those and look at Garland today. It's a different city than it was 12 years ago. So I'm not saying that was all because of me, but it gave them, I guess, permission to believe that better was possible. You know? And then let me tell you another story. I did an appreciative inquiry with a college, with a leadership team, president, vice presidents. And I was really excited about that because I love to work with leaders like that because that's where it's got to start. And we were a couple hours into it. It was an all-day retreat. We were off campus. It was not this college, by the way. And it totally blew up. It totally went south. And because the president was not a healthy person and went off on tangents and started blaming the board and chip on her shoulder, and it was just, and totally derailed it. And then it shut everybody else down in the room. They were afraid to speak. And I'm up here doing what I'm doing right now. She just got on her tirade. Finally, I just sat down, put the pencil down, and we spent the next 2 hours listening to the old way of doing business. And it totally derailed. So, being trained in this today, you see the importance of that? You may get somebody on your group, I hope not, because I think people who will come to this already have kind of that mindset. But you've got to learn the skills to not let them derail the process. Does that make sense? I can't tell you how important that is. Because when it works, it's phenomenal. But there's a critical mass in anything, right? And if the critical mass are the cynics, that's the direction of the organization. If the critical mass are you guys, the appreciators, then that's the direction we're going to go. Okay? So, that was not in my notes, but I think it's important. All right, so a couple more things we need to go over, and then we'll do the AI. You're going to have to look at your sheet for this for sure, because that is very tiny. Assumptions of AI. And like I said, this is grounded in substantial research. David Cooper-Ryder is one of them that's known as the father of AI, if you want to look up his work at Case Western University. There's also a great website, the Center for Appreciative Inquiry.org, and they have an AI Commons where you can get more information. Number one, in every society, organization, or group, something works. I'll even say in every person, something works. Number two, what we focus on becomes our reality. You remember the example of the couple that came to counseling? When they were focusing on what was wrong, they got more of it. When they began to focus on what's right, they got more of it. So this is an important assumption. What we focus on becomes our reality. Number three, reality is created in the moment, and obviously there are multiple realities. Number four, the very act of asking questions influences the group in some way. The very act of asking questions, change begins. So you see how important it is to phrase our questions well, right? Number five, people have more confidence and comfort to go into the future, the unknown, when they carry forward parts of the past. A big foundational assumption about AI is that we must celebrate the history of the positive moments in the organization. Okay? Number 6, if we carry parts of the past forward, they should be what is best about the past. Number 7, value differences. And number 8, the language we use creates our reality. Are you beginning to hear a theme in all this? Our words are so important. Here's the difference between problem solving, the typical approach, with appreciative inquiry. In problem solving, we feel a need. We identify a problem. We analyze or try to analyze the causes or blame it on somebody else and get nowhere, which is where it stops a lot of times. Then we begin to think about possible solutions and come up with some kind of action plan to treat it. It's a treatment. And the basic assumption behind a problem-solving approach is that an organization, a college, is a problem to be solved, right? Now, AI takes a very different perspective. The initial step is appreciating and valuing the best of what currently is. And then we begin to think about what might be, the envisioning, the dreaming step. And we dialogue, we listen to each other, what should be, and then we can create what will be. And the basic assumption behind that is, like I said earlier, that an organization, a family, any kind of community is a dynamic, living organism, and every single piece affects the climate and the direction that that organism goes, right? All right. The principles, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to emphasize that this stuff works and it's grounded. When I first started studying this 15 years ago, there were 5 basic principles underlying appreciative inquiry: constructionist, simultaneity, poetry, anticipatory, and positive. And those are really solid. It's been replicated many, many, many times. And basically what each of those mean: constructionist, words create worlds. Simultaneity, inquiry creates change. The moment we ask a question, change has begun. Poetic, there's different ways to express things. And in this case, in AI, life is expressed in the stories we hear, in the stories we share, right? And what we glean from those. Anticipatory, images inspire action. Human systems move forward in the direction of their vision, right? Of their images of the future. Without a vision, without a clear vision, without buy-in for a vision, we just falter, okay? So part of what we hope to get out of this AI is that we come out with some kind of actual picture of what we want things to be. I want to see a child care center, right? I want to see a nationally recognized dual credit program. Don't you? Yes. I want to see all these people who live in these houses right here in this neighborhood across from us. Do you know how many people that live right there have never been on this campus? I want Mountain View to be just like a light. There'll be systems and invitations that people are drawn here and they feel welcome here, right? So that vision is key. There are some emerging principles in the last few years in further research on AI, and they are wholeness, enactment, and free choice. We know that wholeness brings the best out in others. You guys know I sign all my emails wholeheartedly, right? Wholeheartedly, Deb. I mean, that's not like it can be like that all the time, but that's my goal. I want to live wholehearted. I want to dare greatly, okay? So that's why I got up here nervous as a cat and went ahead with this anyway. So wholeness. This also means that AI is most powerful when you invite every stakeholder to the conversation. It works best when all the city leaders were there. It works best when you do an entire college AI. You want to invite the groundskeepers and the president and everybody in between. When everybody's voice is heard, when there's buy-in, when we're all pulling in the same direction, we can do some pretty amazing things. Okay? All right, and then the last couple, enactment, acting as if is self-fulfilling, right? Let's act as if we have good communication. Let's act as if we like each other. It'd change the whole dynamic, wouldn't it? I'm trying to give that example without going to a negative example, which will wholly negate everything I just said. All right, and then free choice liberates power. All right, are you ready to experience this? And you'll learn by doing here, I hope. Let's see where if I have this on the next slide. For our work here for the next hour, let's focus on this, bridge building. We want to build bridges, an integrated, structured, and inclusive student experience that removes barriers and provides clear pathways to success. Okay? I think of this. Think of Maria Lopez. I just made up this fictitious person who lives 4 blocks from here and doesn't even know what's available to her on this campus. And she's struggling. How do we build a bridge? First of all, we've got to build a door. But then how do we build a bridge that invites her, where she feels welcome and she's not scared to death to walk up into the S building? Or maybe we need to go there. So our focus is to build bridges, to remove the barriers, and make some really clear pathways to success. I love the photo I stole off of the internet on the front cover of your deal there. That's the Dallas high five. But you know how the high five goes like this? But they're lit up in red. Boom, it's so clear. This is what I need to do, right? And it's open to me, and I'm welcome. So building bridges, that's the focus. All right, so the instructions for the AI process, I abbreviated these in your handout. First of all, know your teammates' names. It's essential that you make meaningful connections with your team. You can't just sit down and start the work. Nothing really cool happens unless there's connection. You know what? Boy, I could spend about 8 days on that one. You got to connect. You got to be real. You got to be inviting. You got to be respectful. You got to be honoring. You can't be judgmental. You can't be critical. You got to invite every voice at your table. Don't walk into your group on October 12th and say, "Oh man, I didn't know he was going to be here." You know, I mean, that's an extreme example, but the process will fail. There's got to be connection. There's got to be respect, okay? And so call each other by name. Make sure you know the names of the people that you're working with and they know each other, all right? So we'll take time to do that. In fact, I think Tony might have some techniques for us to use to start those groups. We hadn't talked about that. I just gave that to you. All right? So while you're still in your group, after you've gotten to know each other and you're people of 7 to 13, I want you to read the instructions aloud. Everybody will have a copy of them for that D. Like the first one is define. Read them out loud. There's just a couple paragraphs there so everybody is on the same page of what it is we're trying to do in this stage, in this conversation. And then get in pairs and go through the interview guide, right? Ask each other those questions. Listen deeply, capture the stories, and most importantly, capture the life-giving forces. What makes those positive experiences possible. And then the smaller groups will get back in the larger group, and this is where the magic happens, guys. It's awesome. When all that energy comes back in the room, 1 or 2 people from each of the groups will share their story and talk about their life-giving forces. And what happens is, what do you call it? It multiplies. The creativity multiplies. Somebody over here sees how they can hook up with them. There may be a shift in what they think about something by sharing those stories, right? Story's powerful. It's the sharing out in the large group where the magic happens. But we got to do those first D's well in order to make that possible. Cool? All right. So we're going to do the D's. We have 4 people, 3, 3, 4. Martine, can you maybe come up here? And so there's a even number 4 here with Lori. 2 is fine. Can you guys do the pair conversation? Okay, thank you. All right, so if you'll turn to page 14 in your, I think it's page 14 in your handout where it says define at the top. We may want to go right to discover, but let me just go over this real quick. The defining, you remember, is we don't want to define our focus with a fix-it mentality. What is it we need to fix? It needs to be stated in a provocative, positive statement. What is it we want to see? All right? Can we just go ahead and use what I threw together last night, the building bridges thing? All right, let's do that then. All right, let's skip the define thing then. We won't be able to skip the define thing when we do our, on October 12th though, because they need to write their definition, define the area of their focus based on one of those 8 areas that they're focusing on, okay? There's going to be a group that's going to deal with entry, all right? So their focus is going to be entry. So they're going to have to take that building bridges thing and create the definition, including their focus of entry, all right? So, but for today, let's jump right into the part 1 of the discover phase. So we'll just do it like we're going to do it that day, all right? And again, Tony said we're building the airplane as we're flying it here. So if you see gaps, if you see some things that are going to like, ooh, that's not going to work here, please speak up. Because like I said, Sharon gave us all of about 72 hours to put this together. So we know that there may be places where we missed it. So speak up if this process is not working, and let's fix it today. So in your group, have someone read aloud that description of what it is you're doing, and then interview each other. If you have 4 at a table, just get with one other person. You may want to move to another part of the room to do that. I'd suggest staying in here because we're going to do this very abbreviatedly. Is that a word? And then I'll tell you the next step. Will you do that? You're going to have someone read the definition out loud of what it is you're doing, get in pairs, and then interview them using the interview questions. You need someone to record, the LGFs, so we can capture the good stuff that comes out of your stories.